I always believed that love was enough. That when two people stood before God, their families, and each other, promising forever, those vows meant something. I thought my husband, Daniel, was my soulmate. I thought we had the kind of marriage people envied: two kids, a modest but beautiful home, and a bond that felt unbreakable. But as I look back now, I realize how wrong I was. Because the truth is, love isn't always enough. Our story started more than a decade ago. Daniel wasn't just my husband, he was my first everything. My first crush, my first kiss, my first real love. We grew up in the same small town, went to the same high school, and even though life tried to pull us apart, somehow we always found our way back to each other. He was charming, ambitious, and made me laugh in ways no one else ever could. When he proposed to me on a chilly autumn evening, I didn't hesitate for even a second before saying yes. We had dreams of building a life together, of growing old side by side, and I truly believed we were destined for that future. For years, things seemed perfect. Sure, we had the occasional argument, what couple doesn't? But we always worked through it. I thought we were strong. I thought nothing could break us. And maybe that's why the cracks forming beneath the surface went unnoticed by me for so long. It started subtly, almost unnoticeably. Daniel began coming home later than usual, brushing it off with excuses about work or traffic being terrible. He was always tired, distracted, and his phone, which he once left lying around freely, suddenly became something he guarded with his life. At first, I didn't want to think the worst. I convinced myself he was stressed. His job had become more demanding, and I told myself I needed to support him, not question him. But then there were other signs I couldn't ignore. The cologne I hadn't smelled on him before. The unfamiliar receipts I found crumpled in his pockets, restaurants we'd never gone to together. And then, one night, when he came home late and jumped straight into the shower, I caught a faint trace of perfume clinging to his shirt. My heart sank, but my mind refused to believe it. No, I whispered to myself. Daniel would never do that. He loves me. He loves us. Yet, deep down, something inside me had already begun to break. I tried to push those thoughts away, to hold on to the man I married. But the distance between us kept growing. He stopped touching me the way he used to, stopped looking at me with the same warmth in his eyes. Conversations turned cold, his laughter faded, and I often felt like a stranger living in the same house as him. One evening, I decided to confront him gently. I made his favorite dinner, roast chicken with garlic butter potatoes, and waited for him to come home. When he finally walked through the door, his tie loosened and his eyes heavy with exhaustion, I smiled and said, "I thought maybe we could spend some time together tonight. Just us." For a moment, I saw the flicker of guilt cross his face, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. He leaned down, kissed me on the forehead like I was some fragile object, and muttered, "I'm tired, babe. Can we do this another time?" Another time never came. It was a Saturday morning when everything started to unravel. He told me he needed to go into the office, a last-minute project, he said. But something about the way he avoided my eyes made my stomach twist. As soon as he left, I sat in silence, my hands trembling, my heart racing with dread. That was when I did something I never thought I would. I grabbed his spare set of car keys and decided to follow him. I told myself I was crazy, that I was being paranoid, that I was about to embarrass myself with my wild imagination. But what I saw that morning shattered me. I kept my distance as I trailed his car, praying he'd actually turn toward his office. But instead, he drove in the opposite direction, toward a part of town we rarely visited. My chest tightened with every mile. Finally, he pulled up outside a small, cozy-looking cafe. I parked a little further away, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. And then I saw her. A woman. Younger than me, maybe by 5 or 6 years. Beautiful, with long, dark hair and a smile that made my stomach drop. She was already waiting at a corner table by the window. And when Daniel walked in, her entire face lit up like the sun. I watched in horror as my husband, leaned down and kissed her. Not a friendly peck, not a polite hello. A kiss that held passion. A kiss that once belonged to me. My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I wanted to storm inside, to scream, to demand answers. But I was frozen, paralyzed by the crushing weight of betrayal. I stayed there in my car, watching as they laughed together, their hands brushing across the table, his gaze locked on her like she was the only woman in the world. Every laugh, every smile, every soft touch was a dagger to my chest. When I finally drove away, my body was trembling uncontrollably. I didn't know what to do, who to call, how to even process the fact that the man I trusted with my whole life had been lying to me. For hours, I sat alone in my car, parked in some empty lot, crying until my voice was hoarse. Questions kept spinning in my head. How long had this been going on? Who was she? Did he love her? And the one question that hurt the most. Was I not enough? That night, when Daniel came home, pretending everything was normal, I couldn't even look at him. I tucked myself into bed early, facing the wall so he couldn't see the silent hair slipping down my face. He whispered good night before turning off the light. His voice sounded so casual, so unbothered. And that broke me even more. Because he didn't know. He didn't know that I had seen him. That I knew his secret. But I did. And from that moment, something inside me changed forever. I may have been broken, but I wasn't stupid. If Daniel thought he could play me for a fool, he was wrong. Because I wasn't about to let him walk all over me. No, I would find out the truth, every detail of it. And when I was ready, I would make him pay. And that night, as I lay awake in the dark, one thought burned in my mind like fire. This wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning. I knew my husband was having an affair, but I had no idea just how deep his betrayal would go, or how much it would destroy him in the end. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache. I hadn't slept a single minute. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel with her, smiling, laughing, kissing. It replayed in my mind like some cruel movie I couldn't escape. But when I looked over at him lying peacefully beside me, snoring softly like nothing had happened, a surge of rage shot through me. How could he sleep so easily, knowing he was lying to me every day? How could he hold me at night, whisper, "I love you" in the morning, and then run off into the arms of another woman? For the first time in our marriage, I looked at my husband and saw a stranger. I needed answers. So that day, while he was at work, or at least pretending to be, I decided to do something I swore I'd never do. I went through his phone. I waited until he left it charging in the kitchen, and my hands trembled as I typed in his passcode. I felt sick to my stomach, but I had to know the truth. And the truth was worse than I imagined. There were hundreds of messages between him and her. Her name was Clara. They weren't just meeting up, they were sharing intimate details, inside jokes, and words that once belonged to me. Can't stop thinking about you. You're the best part of my day. When I'm with you, I feel alive. Alive? My chest ached as I scrolled. But then I saw a picture she had sent him, her face glowing, lips pouted, wearing lingerie. And his response? "You're perfect. Don't ever doubt that." I dropped the phone, my whole body shaking. Perfect. That's what he used to call me. The betrayal cut deeper with every message I read. But what made it worse was discovering just how long this had been going on. 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of sneaking around behind my back. 8 months of him choosing her over me. And the worst part? He had been using our money. I saw receipts for hotel rooms, dinners at expensive restaurants, little gifts he never once thought to buy for me. It wasn't just infidelity, it was theft. He was robbing me of my trust, my dignity, my marriage, and even our family's finances. That was the moment my sadness turned into something darker. Something sharper. Revenge. I didn't confront him right away. No, I wanted him to think I was still in the dark. I needed time to plan, to gather proof, to make sure when I finally confronted him, he wouldn't be able to talk his way out of it. So I played the role of the loving wife. I smiled, cooked dinners, kissed him goodnight. And all the while, I was documenting everything, screenshots of his texts, photos of receipts, even recording his late night phone calls when he thought I was asleep. I was building a case against him. But pretending took a toll on me. Every touch felt like fire against my skin. Every lie he told felt like poison in my veins. And then, things got worse. One evening, I overheard him on the phone. I was in the hallway, holding a basket of laundry when his voice floated out from our bedroom. "I can't tonight, babe. She's suspicious. But don't worry, I'll make it up to you tomorrow. You know you're the one I want." I froze. My throat tightened. My hands clutched the laundry basket so hard I thought it would crack in two. "You're the one I want." Those words shattered me in a way nothing else had. Because he didn't just lust after Clara. He wanted her. And that meant I was nothing more than an obstacle in his way. The next day, I did something reckless. I went to the cafe where I first saw them together. I sat at a corner table, hoping, praying that Clara would show up again. And she did. She was even prettier up close, with flawless skin and a laugh that turned heads. I hated her instantly, but I couldn't stop staring. I wanted to see what he saw in her. I wanted to understand why he was willing to throw everything away for this woman. When Daniel arrived, my heart nearly exploded in my chest. Watching them together was torture, but I forced myself to stay, to listen, to observe. And that's when I heard the words that changed everything. Daniel leaned across the table, lowered his voice, and said, "Just a little longer, okay? I promise. I'll leave her. We'll be together soon. Leave me." He was planning to leave me. I stumbled out of the cafe before they could see me, tears blurring my vision. My legs felt like lead, my stomach twisted into knots. It wasn't just an affair anymore, it was a plan. He wasn't just betraying me in the shadows. He was actively preparing to throw me away like I meant nothing. When I got home, I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, my body shaking uncontrollably. Everything we had built together, our marriage, our family, our future, he was ready to destroy for her. And the worst part? He didn't even have the courage to tell me himself. That night, as he slipped into bed beside me and whispered, "Good night," I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding with a new kind of determination. If he wanted to leave me, fine. But not before I made him regret every single lie, every single betrayal, every single moment he thought he could play me for a fool. I wasn't going to beg him to stay. I wasn't going to fight for his love. No, I was going to take everything from him, his reputation, his money, even his precious Clara, before he had the chance to take anything more from me. Because if Daniel thought he could betray me and walk away unscathed, he had no idea who he was dealing with. He was planning to leave me for her. But I decided I would strike first. And when I did, his whole world would come crashing down. I always thought the worst pain in marriage would be losing love. But I was wrong. The real pain is realizing the person you built your entire life around has been living a double life. And that double life includes a plan to erase you completely. Daniel's words, "I'll leave her. We'll be together soon," burned in my mind like fire. He wasn't just cheating. He was actively plotting my replacement. And that was the moment I stopped being the naive wife who believed in fairy tales. That was the moment I became something else entirely. For weeks, I played along. I acted like nothing was wrong, like I was still the same devoted wife who trusted him. He smiled at me, held my hand, even kissed me goodnight, and all the while, he had no idea that I already knew everything. But inside, I was a storm. I documented everything. Screenshots of his texts, voice recordings of his phone calls, photos of him and Clara together. I had built a mountain of evidence, enough to destroy him in an instant. Still, it wasn't enough. I didn't just want to expose him, I wanted him to feel the kind of humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak that he had poured onto me. And to do that, I needed a plan. The first step was simple: find out everything I could about Clara. It wasn't hard. She practically lived on social media, posting selfies at restaurants, at the gym, even little glimpses of her mystery man with his face carefully hidden. But I recognized his watch, his shoes, even the jacket I'd bought him last Christmas. It made me sick. But it also gave me an idea. Through a fake account, I befriended her online. She had no idea who I was. She thought I was just another woman admiring her fashion posts and workout routines. Within a week, she was chatting with me like we were old friends. And oh, the things she told me. She bragged about her perfect man, about how he was planning to leave his cold, boring wife for her, how they would buy a house together, start fresh, maybe even have kids. Kids? I whispered aloud, staring at the screen. He already had kids with me. Our children. The family he was ready to throw away like trash. That was when the rage nearly swallowed me whole. I thought about confronting him right then, about throwing the evidence in his face and demanding answers. But deep down, I knew he'd lie, deny, twist the story until I was the villain. No, if I wanted to break him, I had to wait. I had to let him dig his own grave. And he did. One evening, he came home smelling of perfume so strong it nearly choked me. He tried to cover it up with a quick shower, but I wasn't blind. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at him as he dried his hair, pretending not to notice the way my eyes followed his every move. "How is work?" I asked, my voice calm, almost too calm. He hesitated for just a second, then smiled. "Busy. You know how it is." I smiled back. Of course. Inside, my blood boiled. Busy? Sure. Busy undressing another woman. Busy telling her she was the one he truly wanted. Busy building a future without me. And yet, he still had the audacity to sit across from me and act like everything was normal. The following weekend, he told me he was going on a business trip, 2 days out of town. He even packed a suitcase. But I already knew the truth. Clara had posted a picture of a romantic cabin getaway, 2 wine glasses, a fireplace, and a caption that read, "Can't wait for this weekend." That was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to wait for him to leave me. I wasn't going to sit back and let him humiliate me any longer. I was going to end this. On the morning of his so-called trip, I helped him pack. I kissed him on the cheek, smiled, and wished him a safe journey. He kissed me back, completely unaware that I already knew where he was going and who he would be with. As soon as he left, I grabbed my phone, my evidence folder, and my car keys. And I drove. The cabin wasn't far, just an hour outside the city. When I arrived, I parked down the road and crept up quietly, my heart pounding in my ears. Through the window, I saw them. Daniel and Clara. Laughing. Drinking wine. Acting like a couple in love. I couldn't hear their words, but I didn't need to. The sight alone was enough to make me want to smash the glass and scream. But I didn't. I pulled up my phone, snapped photos, and hit record. Every smile, every kiss, every touch, I captured it all. My proof was complete. That night, when he finally returned home, pretending to be exhausted from meetings, I was waiting. I sat in the living room, the folder of evidence on the coffee table, my heart beating so fast I thought it might explode. "Hey, babe," he said casually, setting down his suitcase. "How was your day?" I looked up at him slowly. "Fine." "How was your trip?" He froze for just a second, just long enough for me to notice. Then he forced a smile. "Good." "Productive." "Productive?" I echoed, my voice low and trembling. "Is that what you call it?" His smile faltered. "What do you mean?" That was when I slid the folder toward him. "Open it." He frowned, confused, but as he pulled out the first photo, him and Clara holding hands across the cafe table, I saw the blood drain from his face. The more he flipped through, the paler he became. Screenshots of his texts, photos of hotel receipts, the cabin getaway, Clara's selfies with his jacket in the background. His hands shook. His lips parted, but no words came out. Finally, he whispered, You went through my phone?" I laughed bitterly. "That's what you're worried about? Not the fact that you've been cheating on me for 8 months? Not the fact that you've been spending our money on her? Babe, listen, it's not what it looks like. Don't you dare!" I screamed, slamming my hands on the table. My whole body trembled with fury. "Don't you dare lie to me again, Daniel. I saw you. I saw you with her. I heard you promise her you'd leave me." His eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. I was going to tell you." "Tell me?" I cut him off, my voice breaking. "When? After you drained our bank account? After you left me and the kids? After you built your perfect little life with her?" Silence. He had no answers, because the truth was written all over his guilty face. And in that silence, something inside me hardened. This wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was war. Cliffhanger, end of part 3. Now that his lies were exposed, Daniel had no idea that the real battle was only just beginning. Because I wasn't done with him, not by a long shot. The silence between us that night was unbearable. Daniel sat frozen on the couch, staring at the pile of evidence I had thrown in his face, while I stood trembling in the center of the living room. The air felt heavy, suffocating, like the walls themselves were closing in on us. Finally, he spoke. "Please," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "It didn't mean anything." I laughed bitterly, though tears blurred my vision. "Didn't mean anything? You spent 8 months with her. You promised her you'd leave me. You risked everything, our home, our family, for a woman who doesn't even know you like I do. And you dare tell me it didn't mean anything?" He reached out, desperate, but I pulled back like his touch was poison. "Listen to me, babe. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But it's you I love. I swear to God, I was going to end it. Don't you dare swear on God's name." I screamed, my voice cracking under the weight of my rage. "You don't get to use that word anymore. Love? You don't even know what that means." He sat there, broken, trying to piece together lies into something that sounded like redemption. But it was too late. Something inside me had already shifted. I wasn't just the betrayed wife anymore. I was the woman who held the power. And I knew exactly how I would use it. The next morning, I didn't speak to him. I moved through the house quietly, mechanically, like a ghost. I packed the kids' lunches, tied their shoelaces, kissed their foreheads, and smiled like everything was fine. But inside, a plan was forming. Daniel thought the worst thing I could do was leave him. He thought I'd cry, beg, maybe even fight to win him back. But he was wrong. I wasn't going to leave him. I was going to destroy him. Piece by piece. Step 1 was his reputation. Daniel prided himself on being the perfect husband, the perfect father, the perfect professional. At work, he was respected. At church, admired. In our neighborhood, envied. People looked at us and thought we were the picture of happiness. I was about to shatter that illusion. With every screenshot, every photo, every recording, I had enough proof to ruin him. And oh, I intended to use it. But not yet. Not until I knew it would cut the deepest. Step 2 was Clara. I couldn't stop thinking about her, the smug smile, the way she looked at him like she'd already won. She thought she was stepping into a fairy tale, that he'd leave me and she'd get the happily ever after. Well, I was going to make sure her dream turned into a nightmare. Through my fake account, I kept talking to her. And slowly, I began planting seeds of doubt. Subtle comments. Little lies mixed with truths. "Are you sure he's serious about you?" I asked one day. "Men say a lot of things when they're sneaking around." She laughed it off at first, but I could tell from her replies, shorter, colder, that the doubt had started to creep in. And when the time was right, I planned to send her everything. Every message where he mocked her behind her back, every receipt that proved he was using my money to fund their dates. Because the truth was, Daniel wasn't just betraying me. He was betraying her, too. Step 3 was the final blow. The money. I went through our accounts carefully, and what I found left me both furious and determined. He had drained thousands from our savings, money we were supposed to use for the kids' college fund, money I had worked extra shifts to save. All of it, wasted on her. But Daniel had made one mistake. He thought I wasn't paying attention. He thought I was blind to the numbers, to the transactions. He forgot I was smarter than he gave me credit for. So I started moving money quietly. Little by little, I transferred funds into a separate account under my name only. It wasn't enough to clean him out completely, not yet, but it was enough to prepare myself. Enough to make sure when the time came, I wouldn't be left with nothing. Because if Daniel was going to throw me away, I'd make damn sure he had nothing left to stand on. But while I plotted, Daniel tried harder than ever to win me back. He cooked dinners, bought me flowers, even canceled work trips to stay home. He thought gifts and gestures would erase months of betrayal. Every time he smiled at me, I wanted to scream. Every time he touched me, I felt like crawling out of my skin. But I played along. I smiled. I thanked him. I kissed him back. Because he needed to believe he was winning me over. He needed to believe I was still his fool. And the more comfortable he became, the sharper my revenge would cut when the time came. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. One evening, Clara messaged me, angry, suspicious, desperate. "He canceled on me again," she wrote. "He said he had to stay late at work. But I know he's lying. Do you think he's using me?" My lips curled into a cold smile. Finally, that was the moment I dropped the bomb. I sent her the photos, the receipts, the messages where Daniel told me he still loved me, the proof that while he was promising her the world, he was still sharing a bed with me every night. Her response came fast. "Oh my God, I had no idea. That bastard. He told me you two were basically done." I typed back slowly, carefully. "Clara, he's never going to leave me. He's just using you. Just like he used me. But you can do something about it if you want." And I told her my plan. The next day, Daniel walked into the house, whistling like a man without a care in the world. He kissed me on the cheek, poured himself a drink, and sat down in front of the TV. He had no idea. No idea that Clara was about to betray him. No idea that his secrets were about to explode in his face. No idea that I was about to pull the trigger on everything. Because tomorrow night, at the dinner party we were hosting for his colleagues, I planned to expose him. In front of everyone. And when I did, his perfect little world would collapse. Tomorrow night, at that dinner table, the mask would finally come off. And Daniel would never see it coming. The night of the dinner party arrived, and with it, the weight of everything I had been carrying for weeks. My heart raced in my chest as I set the table, polished the silverware, and arranged the wine glasses. On the surface, I looked like the perfect hostess, smiling, calm, graceful. But underneath that calm facade was fire. Tonight was the night. Tonight, Daniel's lies would unravel. Tonight, his perfect image would be destroyed. The guests arrived one by one, his colleagues, their wives, a few neighbors. Laughter filled the house as coats were hung and glasses of wine were passed around. Everyone complimented the food, the decor, the warmth of our home. And Daniel? He played his role flawlessly. Smiling, shaking hands, telling stories like the charming man everyone thought he was. To them, he was the devoted husband, the successful professional, the man who had it all. If only they knew. I watched him closely as he moved around the room, topping up drinks, leaning in to whisper little jokes to his boss, kissing me on the cheek in front of everyone. His performance was almost flawless. Almost. Because I knew the truth behind the smile. I knew the guilt hiding in his eyes. And I knew this would be the last time he fooled anyone. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself and went to the kitchen. My hands shook as I reached into the drawer where I had hidden the folder. All the photos. All the screenshots. All the evidence of his betrayal. I took a deep breath, staring at it for a long moment. This was it. The moment that would change everything. When I walked back into the dining room, Daniel was laughing at some joke his colleague had made. He looked so at ease, so untouchable. Perfect. I set the folder on the table. Actually, I said, my voice louder than I intended. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. Daniel's smile faltered. There's something I need to share with everyone here tonight. Daniel's face drained of color. Ani, maybe this isn't the... No, I cut him off sharply, my voice trembling but strong. It's exactly the time. I opened the folder and spread the photos across the table. Gasps erupted around the room as his colleagues leaned forward, their eyes widening at the images. Daniel with Clara at the cafe. Daniel kissing her in the cabin. Screenshots of the messages. I can't stop thinking about you. You're the one I want. The room buzzed with shock. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Another whispered, "Is this real?" I turned to Daniel, my eyes burning into his. Do you want to explain to your friends and colleagues how you've been betraying your wife? How you've been draining our money to spoil your mistress while smiling in my face? He stammered, his voice shaking. It's not what it looks like. Don't you dare, I hissed. Don't you dare insult me again with your lies. The room was silent. Everyone stared. And for the first time, Daniel had nowhere to hide. He tried to stand, but Clara's voice suddenly cut through the silence. Yes, it is what it looks like. Every head turned toward the doorway. And there she was. Clara. My breath caught as she stepped inside, her heels clicking against the floor, her eyes cold as steel. She looked at Daniel with pure disgust. You lied to me, Daniel. You told me she didn't matter. You told me you'd leave her for me. Daniel's face turned ghostly pale. Clara, what are you? She pulled her phone out of her purse and slammed it on the table. You promised me a future. You made me believe I was the one. But you were using me too, weren't you? The room erupted into whispers. His colleagues exchanged horrified looks. And I stood there, silent, watching as the two halves of his double life collided in front of everyone. Daniel reached for Clara, desperate. Please, baby, just... She slapped his hand away. Don't you dare call me that. You're nothing but a liar. You used me. You used her. And you thought you could get away with it? Her voice cracked with fury, and for the first time, Daniel looked small. Pathetic. Exposed. I straightened, my voice calm but sharp. So here's the truth. My husband isn't who you all think he is. He's not faithful. He's not honest. And he's not the man he pretends to be. Gasps filled the room. His boss shook his head, muttering, Unbelievable. One of the wives looked at me with tears in her eyes, whispering, I'm so sorry. Daniel collapsed into his chair, his face buried in his hands. He had no defense left. But I wasn't finished. Daniel, I said, my tone icy. You thought you could betray me and walk away unscathed. But while you were busy lying, I was preparing. His head snapped up, panic in his eyes. I've moved the money. I've spoken to a lawyer. And I've got every piece of evidence I need to make sure you walk away from this marriage with nothing. His face twisted in horror. You wouldn't. I already did. I cut him off. And when this is over, you'll have nothing left but the wreckage of the life you tried to build on lies. The room was dead silent. Everyone could see it. The fall of Daniel. After that night, everything unraveled for him quickly. His boss called him into the office the next morning and politely suggested he resign before the scandal spread. Clara blocked his number, humiliated and furious. His friends stopped answering his calls. And me? I filed for divorce. I took the kids, the house, and the savings he hadn't managed to steal. My lawyer made sure of that. Daniel tried to fight, tried to beg, even cried in front of me once, saying he had made a mistake. But I looked him in the eye and said the words I never thought I'd say. No, Daniel. You were the mistake. It wasn't easy. Betrayal leaves scars deeper than any wound. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, mornings I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. But slowly, I began to rebuild. Not just for me, but for my children. Because I realized something. Daniel may have destroyed our marriage, but he didn't destroy me. I was stronger than he ever imagined. Stronger than I ever realized. Months later, as I stood in our garden watching my kids play, the sun warm on my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Daniel lost everything. His career, his mistress, his reputation. He became a shell of the man he once pretended to be. And me? I found myself again. He thought his affair would destroy me, but in the end, it destroyed him. And I walked away not as a broken wife, but as a stronger woman ready to start again.